In this video, I want to explain example 1 of Algebra 7, and we are told solve these quadratic equations. First of all, you must note they are quadratic because they all have the x squared term. The first one is x squared minus 64 is 0. And this one is the difference between two squares because x squared is a square and 64 is also a square. So we would want to make x the subject of the formula, and we might go this way. X squared is equals to 64. When we take 64 across the equal sign, so finding the square root on both sides, we have x is equals to the square root of any positive number is always plus or minus 8, because negative 8 squared is also 64 and positive 8 squared is also 64. That one is as far as part A of the question is concerned. Sorry for that. Part B, we have x squared minus 81 is equals to 0. And now that we have a clue that the two are squares, and we know the square root of 81 is 9, and we can see we always have a plus or minus. So we will have x squared is equals to 81, and again taking the square root from both sides, we are having x is equals to plus or minus 9. Let us go to part C of the question, which is a bit different. X squared minus 7x is equals to 0. First of all, we must note that x is common in the two terms, and therefore we must be prepared to put x outside the bracket, so that inside the bracket we have x squared divided by x x, and then minus 7x divided by x is minus 7, close bracket, is equals to 0. And we realize that these are two terms that are multiplied together and the product is 0. So it is either the first term x is 0 or the second term x minus 7 is 0. And if this is true, then x is equals to positive 7. So the solutions to this question is 0 and positive 7. Let us go to part D of the same question. X squared minus 10x plus 21 is equals to 0. I want us to pay attention here because I will introduce a method that will be used in the next subtopic, an approach of solving quadratic equation. As we know, we have a general quadratic equation in terms of ax squared plus bx plus c is equals to 0. This is the general form of a quadratic equation. And in our case, we can see a is 1, b is minus 10, and c is 21. There is what I call BAC approach. B alone, AC as a product, I call it BAC approach. So in our question, what is our B? Minus 10. What is the product of A times C? 1 times 21 is 21. Listen to this. There are always two questions that we should ask ourselves at this particular point, because we are looking for two answers. Quadratic equations will mainly have two answers. And question number 1, which two numbers, when we add them, we get our B, which is minus 10. At the same time, When we multiply them, we get 21. I repeat, which two numbers, when we add them, they give us -10, and when we multiply them, they give us positive 21? Well, you'll have to think, but outrightly we have a -3 and plus a -7, which is -10, and the same -3 times -7 is 21, positive 21, because negative times negative is positive. A negative plus another negative is a bigger negative. After we identify the terms, the second step is break the middle term, which is bx, break the middle term and substitute it with the factors that you have realized. So what we do, x squared minus 3x minus 7x plus 21 is equals to 0. Now, as you can see, we have broken the middle term, which was -10x, and we have replaced that term with the two factors that we have found. But since -10 was a coefficient of x, even the new factors will come with x. And therefore, we ask ourselves, within the first two terms now, what is common? Of course, you realize x is common. Inside the bracket, we have x minus 3. And then within the next two terms, what is common? -7 is common. And then in the bracket, we have x minus 3, because 21 divided by -7 is -3. And this is now what is equals to 0. Of most importance, we must see that that bracket is identical to that. And that is how things should be. So if these brackets are identical, we just write it only once, x minus 3. And then the terms that were outside the bracket, they form a bracket of their own. So x minus 7. And this is what is equals to 0. Having said that, we now find that we have two terms or two brackets. When multiplied, the product is 0. It is either one of the bracket could be x minus 3 is 0. And if this is true, x is equals to 3. Or it is now this bracket x minus 7, which is 0. And if this is true, then x is equals to 7. And these are the two solutions to that quadratic equation, example 1, part D. Thank you.